Right behind me, you can see the High Bridge coal burning stack in St. Paul, Minnesota. This stack makes electricity from coal, and it's owned and operated by Xcel Energy. Although the smoke looks clean, it's not. Thousands of tons of pollutants are emitted from this plant every year. The worst of these pollutants include nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxides, which cause acid rain and smog. The smog from coal plants contributes to diseases like asthma, heart attack, and stroke. And the carbon dioxide from coal plants contributes to global warming. But that's not all. Coal plants also emit over 60 different heavy metals and carcinogens, including lead and mercury, which can cause brain damage to kids. And there are no government regulations to control lead or mercury from coal-burning utilities. Luckily for the Twin Cities metro area, a voluntary plan called MERP, or the Metro Emissions Reduction Project, to clean up 3 of Xcel's coal-burning plants by the end of this decade was proposed by Xcel and accepted by the government in December 2003. If you had only listened to the corporate media, you would have thought that Xcel Energy and the government had accomplished this with little, if any, grassroots involvement. What brought about this change of heart from Xcel? Why, in an anti-environmental political climate, had Xcel decided to clean up its act? We asked Xcel to participate in this taping, but they refused. We do know that part of the reason Xcel wanted to clean up the plants is because it negotiated with the legislature to pass along some of the cleanup costs to the consumer, so the plan was economically worthwhile for Xcel. But there's another even more powerful reason that Xcel took on this project. Ordinary, everyday people got involved and told Xcel the pollution had to stop. At least part of this victory belongs to them. I should know. I was one of the founders of Clean Energy Now, a coalition of groups who united to fight coal plant pollution and promote clean energy. I see this stack every day from my home. Until I started to question its presence, I didn't know some basic facts about coal burning. For instance, that the United States gets over half of its electricity from burning coal. The American Cancer Society says that more people die from illnesses directly related to coal burning than die from homicide or from drunk driving accidents. But after my neighbors and I did all this work to pressure Xcel, including lawn signs, petition drives, letters to the editor of newspapers, letters to legislators, public hearings, I still had a few nagging questions. So we talked to several people: a Sierra Club organizer, an artist and environmental justice activist, a public health nurse, Minneapolis mayor, and an environmental health consultant. I started by asking Michelle Rosier, the Sierra Club organizer, to explain how the Clean Energy Now campaign started.
It really was a lot of one-on-one, just talking like you and I are, and Clean Energy Now did a really great job of holding house parties and community forums, and just starting from the base and talking to people about how important this was. And then there was the lawn sign campaign with the Clean Energy Now lawn signs, and it went from there.
How did the lawn sign campaign come about?
We had been going to a bunch of Xcel community meetings where they were telling us that they were going to have a project, but it wasn't nearly as big as what the community had envisioned. And so the lawn signs were kind of a way of the community to say, you know, Xcel, we're watching you, and thousands of us are watching you. You better do the right thing, and you better do a good job. When MERP started, there were a lot of reasons for Xcel to make this happen. And then you saw the Bush administration roll back the Clean Air Act. And as those things started to weaken, there was less and less reason for MERP to go forward, except that the citizens were there at every meeting. Xcel, we're not letting you off the hook. It's time to clean up these plants. They're really old plants, and, you know, they need to be cleaned up.
That's great. So what do you think the legacy of this particular grassroots action would be for people in the future?
I think two things. I mean, 2009, we'll all be breathing cleaner air because of the work that the community did. And I think it's a sign that really, when it comes down to it, citizens do make the difference.
Seitu Jones got involved because of his love of fishing and because of his concern about mercury in fish. Once a week, he volunteers at the Science Museum on a boat, traveling up and down the Mississippi to monitor the fish population.
You know, I grew up with these folks, my grandfather, my uncles, my father, who were passionate outdoors people and loved to fish. And so they were recreational fishermen. And we also supplanted much of our menus with fish that we caught. And for the last 7 years, I and a group of volunteers have taken a boat that we built in the galleries of the Science Museum out on the river. In our observations, a good 90% of the folks who are fishing on the river are folks who are Asian, African American, Latino, and Native American. They're fishing literally right below the Riverside plant and right below the High Bridge plant. Mm-hmm. And those folks are unaware of the hazards with eating those fish.
Coal-burning plants are the largest single source of mercury emissions in Minnesota and the U.S. The main way mercury gets into people is by eating fish. It only takes 1/70th of a teaspoon of mercury deposited in a 20-acre lake to raise a fish alert. People who could suffer brain damage from eating mercury-contaminated fish include unborn babies, children under 7, and people who eat a lot of commercial fish or seafood. Beverly Probst is a public health nurse at the Lucy Craft Laney School. Like Seitu Jones, her main concern is the overall health of people, especially kids. She's particularly concerned with how toxins like mercury may negatively impact kids' ability to learn to read and write. She's also worried about how asthma prevents some kids from attending school at all.
The reason why, in a cognitive way, these children are not doing well is because of the environment. The emissions over many years that were falling in this community, that were being carried from where the plant is across the community. And the fact that I can identify the number of births that are in this community, as well as the number of young children that live in this community, and that's paralleled with the high incidence of asthma. We have 39 children in this school alone, many of them that are in the K through 3 age level, that have to go into the nurse's office on a weekly basis to get nebulized or nebbed. Many of those children live in the 554-112 area. For me, it's like, well, is there a relationship between those toxins and these children's development? And the research that has been evolving in the last 5 years about brain development is indicating, yes, toxins in the environment can harm the development of the neurons that are very immature when a child is a newborn. We have children in the 7th and 8th grade who are still below in their reading and have been since they were in the 3rd and 4th grade.
Mm. There are also studies that suggest that the number one reason that kids are absent from school is actually due to asthma attacks. Mm-hmm. And have you found that there's increased levels of absenteeism at your school?
Yes, we have. We serve a population of Southeast Asian families here. About a third of our students are Southeast Asian. They have in the past may have said, well, he's got a bad cold, and in many cases we've learned that it's not so much a bad cold, it really is the asthma. Mm. Getting those families in to see the doctor so the diagnosis can be made, and then getting that child back to school has been a real challenge in our school, as well as the other Comer schools.
Next, we went to Minneapolis City Hall to interview Mayor Ryback. We asked him why he got involved with MERP.
Well, this mattered a lot to residents who live here. I mean, it's as connected as a kid who has asthma who lives near this plant, knowing that that's a problem. I mean, that's a huge issue. But what was so, I think, exciting about this project is that with all the questions of legislative approval and large corporations, this really came down to the fact that there were citizens at a grassroots level who said that this level of pollution was not tolerable to them and who wanted to take action. And then who even became in a partnership with the company with political leaders, and all of us, I think, together scored the biggest environmental victory Minneapolis has seen in, well, probably a couple decades. The grassroots meant everything in this case, because what it really did is it helped take these large, seemingly abstract environmental issues and bring it down to the basic issue of a kid with asthma in North Minneapolis. And the way that was activated is at all sorts of different ways. Citizens had lawn signs. There was the big Northeast Parade, and I leafleted asking people to sign up. We had a great and I think very powerful collection of testimony at the Urban League talking about environmental justice that featured citizens. And obviously at all the hearings, it was citizens speaking. It's really clear to me that you can take huge, large-scale environmental issues and have an impact if there are citizens involved. It's one thing for a politician to get up and give a speech, and I'm happy to do that, but I felt much more comfortable here that the real challenge was to try to make sure that grassroots citizens just told their human stories, and as they did that, we scored a big victory. Immediately upon coming into office, we wanted to have an impact on environmental issues because we live in a city that has the greatest urban environment in the country and felt that we needed to have a very green government. The biggest single victory we could score was to take the single largest source of air pollution in the city and have it converted to gas. And so this mattered a lot as an issue for the city. I think it also mattered a lot just to me personally to see that if you think about legacies that can happen from citizens and government working together, there are very few ones that have more of an impact than being able to do something that very tangibly changes the air, changes the land use patterns, and demonstrates that citizens, not governments or corporations, are really in charge of the environment.
Finally, we talked with Paula Maccabee, an environmental consultant who worked on the Metro Emissions Reduction Project from the very beginning. Paula was definitive in her assessment of the impact of citizen involvement.
My perception, and I've been doing advocacy for 23 years, is that citizen activism was indispensable to the Metro emissions reduction proposal. And it started with Xcel coming forward with the Riverside plant asking for a continuation of their permit for air emissions. And what I learned from management at the Pollution Control Agency in Minnesota is 5 years previously, the same permit had come up and had just been rubber stamped because there were 5 comments. But this time, there were over 207 comments. And this told the Pollution Control Agency and Xcel Energy that it was time to change business as usual. And I think that's where Xcel started thinking seriously about the idea of converting the coal plant to natural gas, which is a much cleaner fuel.
You know, what really motivated, what suddenly got people's attention at that point?
Well, I think over the last few years there's been a lot more information about the health impacts of fine particles. Fine particles are so small that you don't see them. They're not black smoke. And it was only in the last few years with the data from the American Lung Association and from Harvard School of Public Health that people realized that those fine particles kill. As many as 70,000 people across the United States have their death come earlier, hasten, because of inhaling fine particles. And once ordinary people know the information that coal plants can cause asthma, bronchitis, heart attacks, lung disease, failure of their children to breathe properly, people get out and they care. There was a really unusual revolutionary partnership between neighborhood organizations, many of which are based in a community council, and traditional environmental organizations, Sierra Club, Isaac Walton League, Clean Water Action Alliance, and these groups banded together to form Clean Energy Now, and had some cute, catchy little signs with Clean Energy Now in a little red circle through a coal plant, but also the sort of traditional calls, letters, petitions, resolutions from the neighborhood organization that build a grassroots base. And this was really important at the agency level because when it was time for the public to comment, there were literally thousands of letters coming in, petitions coming in, and dozens of resolutions from individual neighborhood organizations saying, we support the coal plant cleanup, and we expect and hope that our government will endorse this proposal and let it go forward.
What was so revolutionary about traditional environmental groups and neighborhood groups working together?
And it shouldn't be revolutionary. It should be the normal way of doing things. But it hasn't been. And there was something else revolutionary here, that environmental problems disproportionately affect communities of color and low-income communities. And the evolution and development of Environmental Justice Advocates of Minnesota, which is based in North Minneapolis, And hearings in North Minneapolis on the coal plant played another important role, because that was one of the few times that there was anybody in the room talking about coal plant pollution who didn't have a white face. And literally hundreds of people turned out for the hearing, and after that hearing, after that powerful and personal testimony, we heard from every commissioner that it's time to shut down the dirty coal plants in the inner city. Some of the most powerful testimony was personal testimony about the risks to family members. And maybe only a small portion of the community are tree huggers, but we're all huggers of our seniors and our kids and the people we love who can be at risk from environmental pollutants. I think this is one of the best kept secrets of the corporate economy, is that what customers say matters. And if what customers say is we want the dirtiest, the cheapest right now and we want a lot of it, that's what we're going to get. And if customers say we want quality, we want fairness, we want environmental protection, we want rights for citizens and for workers, then our corporate economy is going to follow along, because communities have power and customers have power. And once we realize that, we're going to have a much better society.
There are dirty, old coal-burning utilities all over the United States who have been exempted under the Clean Air Act from meeting most modern pollution control standards. Do you have a coal-fired power plant in your neighborhood? What other sources of pollution are there out there which may be affecting your community? On the web, you can check out scorecard.org and type in your zip code to find out who the polluters are and what they're polluting your neighborhood with. If you want to find out more about coal-burning utilities in particular, check out cleartheair.org. And of course, many more resources can be found at rightheretv.org. The only way pollution stops is when ordinary people band together and kick up a ruckus. If you need help organizing in your area, there are groups who can help, like the Sierra Club, Isaac Walton League, and Clean Water Action Alliance. But ultimately, it's up to you. The planet is in your hands. Do you care enough to get involved? For Right Here Media, this is Elizabeth Dickinson.